Hello, I'm Emily.
I'm Scott.
And I'm Chloe.
And today we're going to be talking about product and cost curves. Please remember to check our notation and language use with your professor because it may vary.
So we can look at the marginal product and average product in a chart, but we can also view the relationship by drawing the curves out. So given this information, we're now going to make a total product chart and then an average product. We are now going to take a look at what it would look like if we plotted it out. First, we're going to take a look at the total product curve. So this is the top curve. At an output of 30, we can see that there is a labor of 6. This 30 and 6 labor represents the total maximum output. So this is going to be the highest point on our graph. It is also important to note that at this point, at a labor of 6, our marginal product down here equals 0. So the peak of the total product curve is where marginal product equals 0. So you can see as we move from 6 workers to 7, marginal product is now in the negatives at -1. But also, our average product is still positive. We can also observe that now that marginal product is going into the negative, our total product after 6 is also declining. Now we're going to take a look at the marginal and average product curves and the relationship between the two. This is a really important point to understand because it will carry out through all of your economic studies. So starting with the first point, when marginal is greater than average, average increases. To understand this first point, we are going to look at an example. For this example, think about your overall grade point average. Think of that you have your overall grade in the class, so your overall GPA, which is your average product, and then think you take one course, and that extra grade in the class represents your marginal. So this extra is just one class. So if your overall GPA is a B, and your marginal grade is an A, which is larger than your B, your grade point average is going to increase. So let's look at the second point. When marginal is less than average, average decreases. So if you get a C in your class, what is going to happen to your overall GPA of B? Well, your GPA is going to decrease because your marginal is less than your average. So for the last point, when marginal is the same as average, average does not change. We can see this as if you get a B in your one class, your GPA of a B average is not going to change.
All right, with this problem, we're looking at product curves and cost now. The problem reads, from the product curves, we are able to derive the short-run cost curves. Assume we pay each worker $50 a day and we pay $100 a day in fixed costs. How do we determine total variable and total fixed cost? So when we're calculating total variable cost, it's important to understand that we're deriving this information from the product curve. So the product curves shows us how different combinations of variable input and fixed input create different values of output. So here, labor, which is a variable input, is changing, and as it changes, as we move from 0 to 5, our output is changing as well. So let's put some numbers to this idea. The variable cost, the total variable cost at a labor of 0 is 0, because if we have 0 workers, we don't have to pay anyone. So that one was easy. Okay, well what about when we move to 1? Assuming we pay each worker $50 a day, 1 laborer, $50. 2 laborers, $100. 3, $150. So for right now, all we're doing is multiplying the wage by how many laborers we have to get total variable cost. All right, so from the last problem, we were able to figure out what our total variable cost would be by combining our wage, $50 a day, which is our variable cost, by our amount of labor. And this is how we got this total variable cost column. Now we're going to derive total costs by adding together total variable costs and total fixed costs. We have to pay $100 a day in fixed costs. You can think of this like paying rent on a building. It doesn't matter whether or not you're making anything, you still have to pay $100. So, this equation, total fixed costs plus total variable cost equals total cost. And so, it just becomes a summation. 0 and 100 equals total costs of 100. Realize that we're producing nothing, and yet we still have to pay $100. This is because, like the idea of fixed, it doesn't matter how much we're outputting, we have to pay $100 regardless. Continuing with the math, when we're producing 6 with 1 laborer, that means we have variable costs of 50 and fixed costs of 100, 150, moving down, 200, 250, 300, and 350. So it's very simple. We're just adding the total fixed cost, which we determined to be 100 from the problem, and our total variable cost, which we determined when we were multiplying labor by our wage rate.
So that's all we have today about product and cost curves. If you have any further questions, please ask your professor or come into the tutoring center.
Bye.